Welcome to Raw Painting. In this video series, we're just going to be painting miniatures. You're going to get a bird's eye view of me just painting miniatures. It's raw, uncut. We're going to post it as it's recorded, so there's never any telling what's going to be said. If you like watching miniatures being painted, if you've got tips, tricks you want to pick up, if you want to add any content in the comments below, I'll be happy to reply to them. And let's just jump in and paint some miniatures. All right, nice and charged. Crack open our wet palette again. And to get back after it, you can see on that ring a little bit of gray still showing. So we're going to do one more coat. And when we put in the brown tone, that'll give us plenty of base to cover with. But this way we've got good base coverage. And while I've got that color, just going to go back in, just retouch some of these highlight areas. Good opaque coverage. With this antique gold color. Back into the center where we'll have the highlight. Onto the horn holders. See how that pops out from the yellow color of the horn. The yellows and browns really stands out really nice. Really good, strong coloring. brings out a little bit of that detail for the rivet areas. And just nice, smooth transitions of colors is what we want. And while that's going there, I am going to open up a dropper of our base green that we did on that pack. And you can see a couple of spots, even with the layers of dull coat where we rubbed it by having to hold it while we're working on the chest. So I just want to go through and give good coverage on that. Make sure we've got a nice, even, smooth base. And because of the colors on this, I had hoped for a little bit more color transition in this pack part. But because we've attached it, I'm not going to get as much detail in it as we did, say, the trunk. But it's okay. Again, this is for my own tabletop. And I think we'll be all right. I want to check that ring around the horn. And it's looking pretty good. So now I can go through with my brown wash and just start to apply that. Now the challenge with this is it doesn't have a whole lot of character to it. So it's going to, because of gravity, settle to the bottom, which actually with this one here is okay. And you can see I'm going just slightly over to give a liner effect. I want that little bit of separation from the horn, which color-wise will do it, but by brown lining this that way, it gives our eye even more separation so that we can distinguish the two different components a little bit easier in that visual illusion. And again, looks kind of rough. That's okay. I'm actually going to do a second wash with that brown to give it a little bit darker tone, since it doesn't have the areas to catch that brown. I want to make sure that we really get a good deep dark tone on there. Pack color, just want to go over and look at. Looks like there's a little bit of area there. I just want to make sure we get good coverage on. And then while both of those are drying, I'm going to prep up for the next tone on that green. But this one I'm not going to do a darker wash. I am just going to start moving up into lighter colors. So with the next green, we're just going to get a couple of drops of that onto our wet palette. And do a touch of blending. Make sure we've got good consistency. And just start laying in some of these colors. And we'll use the shape of the pack to show us where the higher areas of this fabric are. Now, fabric's a little bit different from, say, armor. You still have to be very mindful of where the light is hitting it, but if you ever get a piece of fabric and stretch it, and see how the colors shift while it's being stretched, it actually has a lot of character detail that you can pick up in your I guess painting light process to it. So on the corners, they'll actually be lighter, even though they may not be directly in what we would consider our light source. But it gives us that, in that illusion of material. So this is going to be a lower mid-tone. And then we'll put in a mid-tone, which will be lighter in color. And then start transitioning into our true highlights. And we're starting to get a little bit of depth. I'm going to go back to my brown wash and do another brown wash onto this horn ring. I'm not going to do the brown lining on this layer. You'll see I just stick to the ring itself. And that is because if you overdo that brown lining, it's going to be too stark of a color, and we'll edge those with gold anyhow, or our gold transitional palette. And you can see where the gravity is pulling that down to the bottom. I'm going to flip it up a little bit so you can see. And that's okay. It's going to add a little bit of character to it, and that's where the shading is going to go anyhow. So that transition color is drying pretty good. We can go ahead and start moving to a mid-tone. There at the, where where it folds together. I'm being very deliberate in where I apply the paint. Because I want those darker layers to be showing really well. So this mid-tone is not going all the way up into those creases. Some of them slightly, but not as much. Again, we want to leave those edges of the darker color very visible. Because that's how we highlight those details so they're easier to see with the eye. Out of all of them, this area here is actually the most challenging because of the angle. That chest. And that rope bit. But going pretty good, starting to see some highlighting details. Our true mid-tone goes next. Then same concept, small amounts, light thin paint. Highlight those transitions. Leave some areas of the previous color. And then depending on the opacity that you want, you can do a second level of this mid-tone. I'm just looking for a couple of areas where I can really bring out the kind of transition of colors. So a couple of spots here and there, I'm just leaving a little trace of this color. To add more dimension. And that's drying so well. On this area here, I am going to go ahead and apply a little bit more. In a couple of spots. Just to bring that opacity up. Really call out that this has got some texture to it. And then same with up here. Starting to see some good color transitions from the darkest to the lighter. And before I go back to that horn, I'm going to prep up the next green that we'll start blending to. And just get a dot of that, ready to go. In the meantime, to catch that ring up to the helmet with where we're at on the helmet, I am going to go in and just lightly start putting in, back in I suppose I should say, some of the antique gold color. I'm focusing mostly on the edges, and because this is a nice soft thin paint, we're able to really tie those thin washes to the previous layer. Some of that will show through pretty decent and give it some character. You'll see as we continue to highlight. Just like on the helmet, there will be a couple of layers of this picking out these colors just to bring up that opacity. And lay a good foundation of the light hitting this metal. That'll make it really appear to be gold, a non-metallic metal paint job. And drawing really nice, good thin layers helps that, so that we can go in and punch those up a little bit more, add more opacity. This, where the light is going to be at the top, it's going to have the most opacity. So it will also get the most highlighting as we continue up the color scale. We'll just add a little bit of flecking kind of here and there to give this almost a hammered look. Now let's go back to our greens, and we're going to do 2 more layers of greens on this pack, and then that pack is going to be done. You'll see this is where we really start punching in light with this highlight layer. I want to be very purposeful in where we apply this. Where is the most pressure on the pack and where is light hitting it directly. Those are the 2 things we're going to be calling out with this first highlight color. So look at where is the pressure coming from? Where is the pack under pressure? He's got something he's carrying in here, and it's going to stretch in that fabric out. And where is the light hitting it? So its highest points, we're going to be a little more liberal with the highlight paint. It's because aside from any pressure that it may have, it's also got light shining directly on it. And let's see, I think it shows pretty decent. I know it's got some sheen to it because of the light. That part there seems just a little too square, so we'll touch that a little bit. Up into this highest point. Yeah, this angle is a little bit of a bear. And our last highlight on that green. This will be the brightest it goes. The most purposeful strokes and the biggest amount of contrast that's laid down. And just kind of stippling here and there. Because this is not a hard surface, this is supposed to be fabric, we want it to be uneven in color. As far as we don't want clean, solid lines of color. Just like that. And then because we're there, I am going to go back through the colors that we previously used. Remember, these are staying wet on the wet palette. It's great for things like this because you're able to go back to the colors we used for the rope. So they will match the rope around the trunk and lay those in. I have seen some advertisements for WizKids pre-painted minis, and I've seen a couple of them. I've thought about buying a couple of them. For me, painting is what it's all about. So I have not gotten any. Which means I haven't really looked at them super close, just in the packaging. Now I'm going to go back through once more and drop in some additional antique gold. Again, along this horn ring. We've done quite a bit of painting today. My thumb is just about covered with the transitional colors we have used. Looks like I've got a little dry bit on the tip of my brush. Let's take that off. And just make sure we're going in and laying in some nice color. A little bit of reflected down there at the bottom. Nice even layer on the top. I actually want to punch this side up a little bit more. So I'll lay in just a touch more over that brown. Still has lots of character in there, which is nice. Let's go back to the rope. Back to that rope. And this is our mid-tone on the rope. We got to start deciding what's laying over top of what. And lay those colors in. This is all kind of under stress as it's holding the pack together. Doesn't have the like overlapping bits that the chest had, where it was kind of woven together, or kind of overlaying each other in different ways, except for the knot area. That's okay. And again, just a nice thin color. We're going to continue to highlight, get those stressed areas. Be able to tell that this is rope. punch that up with one higher highlight layer. Where it's got the most stress, and then a little bit on that knot. Looks like I got a little bit on that upper piece too much. So I'm going to go in with a bit of that green, nice and thin, and just lay it over top. That'll help cut that down. We are down to the final gold colors here. So exciting. We've got the ring on here, caught up to the helmet bits. We're just going to start laying in some highlights. Kind of roughed in. Carry that through here. On the back of the helmet. And being a little bit deliberate where we're laying these. We're going to have two more tones of this highlighting here, but they're going to get finer and finer in application. So we really want to be deliberate with where we're putting paint. Pick out a couple of rivets. Definitely on that crown, the highest point. But less and less paint as we progress in color are going on this mini. The paint is getting finer and finer in application. Or attempting to. going to stick higher and higher as I apply these. So upper edges only. And then if you're following the template we have been doing, where you're only covering about 1/2 to 3/4 of what you laid down previously, that's not going to be an issue because you should already be following those contours little by little by little. So you'll see the highest points painted stronger or getting more paint to coincide with your highlights. And just round and round we go. We're going to do a second layer of this same color. Again, just to make sure that we've got good opacity to it. Again, a little bit less than what we did the last time. It's all about that gentle blend. I'm getting quiet, I apologize. I'm just trying to be very delicate with that brush. I don't want to get this close to the end and make a big mistake. Two more layers here. 2 more layers, if you can believe it, and we're done. We will have finished painting this Reaper Frost Giant. It's hard to believe it's gotten so close to the end. So this is the previous layer, yellow, with just a touch of white mixed in. This one here can be very challenging because it's super easy to do too much on this. Way easy to do too much. We want to be even more deliberate on the highlight here than the previous layers. Even more deliberate in where we place it. Lots of stippling on the edges. And then here is where we start laying in this final color here. Remember on that last one we did kind of top and bottom with a more hollow shade on the hood. This one we're doing it opposite. We're doing a little bit more center placement on this color. Once we get to our next highlight, you'll see why. So just the absolute highest points that we want to start applying this to. Nervous on this one, nervous. So the very center crown. I want to lay that in nice and thin. Keep your brush point nice and sharp. Go back to the palette and roll it if you need to. We're looking primarily at edges, what's going to be catching the light. This here is the only place where we really break that rule, because it's the lowest point actually away from the sun, but for the contrast with the face, I'm highlighting it as though it's the highest. Right, so we did that side. Let's go back and hit this side here. Again, just your highest points. Very, very light touches. Very, very light applications. We're focused mostly on the edges. Check your edges and high points. I apologize if I'm out of focus here. I just like to get it as close to me as possible. Really be able to see it. goes all gray. Final highlights. Final highlights. Picking out where the light is going to be actually hitting this bad boy. Doing just a touch of almost pure white. So challenging. It's the very top of the crown. Just the edge of the nose guard. Almost a line in those. Do just a hair more of the edge here. And then just a hair more of the edge here. The All Frost Giant is painted. I'm going to take some photos. I'm going to post it. And when we pick up again, we're going to be painting a dragon. Thank you if you've been following along from the start. If you're just watching, I hope you enjoy the Reaper Frost Giant Warrior with one-handed axe. As we paint the dragon, we're going to continue to base this fellow. I've got some good ideas on how to do it with this slick base. But until next time, enjoy. Look at that. Congratulations and thank you. Thanks for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we'd love to have you subscribe. Feel free to hit that button if you care to get notifications for when we post new content. Leave your comments below and help us answer the question of where will your adventures take you. Enjoy.